Hi, this is Dan Henk, and welcome to another edition of the Skull Sessions. And today my guest is Cody Goodfellow. Did I get that right?
Goodfellow. You got it.
All right, awesome. All right, man. So, what do you got going on?
Well, I've been writing for money for about 30 years. I've written 9 novels solo, a couple with John Skip and James Osborne. Uh, had a number of collections out there and stuff and some short films. My current project is a novel called New Tomorrow, which is an alternate history thing where pulp era superheroes basically turn terrorist to try and stop a guy from inventing teleportation in the 1930s. And when I came up with it, I thought the great escapist thing. Hey, a weird asshole tech disruptor screwing up everything. That would be a nice escape from reality, right? Yeah, and reality's got a funny way of kicking you in the ass. So here we are.
It seems a little bit like I'm sure you've heard all the conspiracy theories about Tesla and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
It seems kind of like that, like the whole Edison and
Oh,
supposedly what I've heard actually is I don't remember if it was like Elon Musk or some other guy talking about it. It's like so if he actually invented like free electricity for all, he could
yeah.
do that, but then we would have no like Wi-Fi, we'd have no like GPS because
Right.
everything would be saturated with electric waves.
Right. I mean, uh it's a swashbuckling adventure, but it is science fiction in the question that how much does technological innovation drive who we are as a society. And it's set during the early years of the Great Depression when we basically the old Gilded Age way of running things had run us into the ground. And it took a war to get us finally out of that. But if a new technological innovation came along at that time, it could have lifted us us out of the depression, but without the New Deal, without a recommitment to labor rights and raising the standards of the working class. And that's kind of where we are right now with AI and a lot of other developments that promise to lift the people who are already high up to the highest heights, but leaving the rest of us behind.
Right.
And
Okay, that's what you have out now. That's
it's
the
coming
book that
out
you have out.
It's coming out July 15th. We're taking pre-orders right now. It's from a little outfit named Oddness Press.
Okay.
And so it's kind of hard to find, but if folks are interested, we hope they'll go to oddness.com rather than, making the third richest man in the world richer. Um, but
That seemed to change almost daily. Like it could be Bezos, it could be Elon Musk, who knows?
it is. And you know what drives
It
me
might
crazy?
be a guy that we don't know about,
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, we probably the economy is act in a way that yeah, there's probably somebody richer than Elon, the top three guys put together, but we just don't see it
Right.
because it's money that's hidden or invisible to us.
It's
The
entirely possible, yeah.
right. I mean the focus on crypto has always seemed really weird to me because what do you need if you need crypto, you're probably not buying a pizza. You're probably yeah, I want a pizza with
Well, the thing is, like, it's so volatile, and there's so many people that are just scammers. Like, you heard about the Hawk 2 girl, and she started her own crypto line, and she made
yes.
all these millions and just like ditched.
Right. Well, and the guy down in Argentina, Millet, he's kind of like a South American non-union Trump substitute. But he had a crypto rollout and it went kind of the same way as the Hawk Tuah girl, or well, hell, our current president, in that it surged, people jumped on, and it was a pump and dump
Right.
because all the suckers uh, got left behind with their hands on it when it tanked. And
Yeah, yeah.
the very definition of a Ponzi scheme, and it's scary. I mean, you take basic philosophy classes in college, and they're like, yeah, in the state of nature, animals help each other and stuff. But it's like, if we're in a cage and we've exhausted all the resources, suddenly, yeah, the rats turn on each other in really,
Well,
really
it
fast.
seems like kind of animals, they help each other unless they feel like they're competing over something.
Right,
You know,
right.
and all too often, I mean, I don't really go off on all social, political trends and all that stuff, but it seems like all too often people think they're fighting over resources when they're not. It's like this small group of people that makes money off you guys fighting.
Yes, yes. It's the old. I mean, it's sad how much we cartoons were trying to teach us, but yeah, we're kind of run by Wimpy right now. And Wimpy's slogan, besides "I will gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today," was "Let's you and him fight."
And
And
I also think,
yeah,
going
so
off old cartoons, a lot of people act like Wiley Cody.
right, right, yeah, yeah, trying to that imaginary roadrunner.
Yeah, yeah.
It's but that's the weird thing is like JG Ballard, author of Crash and High Rise and Empire of the Sun, once said that the 20th century science fiction is the literature of the 20th century. I really have to counter that horror is the literature of the 21st century,
Yeah,
because
yeah. I,
we're
I actually, on a side note, I really liked the book Crash, and
right.
I know Cronenberg turned into a movie, and I really like most stuff by Cronenberg, but that one I wasn't really feeling. I didn't feel like he captured the book.
It's funny because, well, I mean, like, he had to kind of divest a lot of the aspect of celebrity, which was a major theme in Crash. I mean, the guy who's Vaughn, the guy who's trying to cause the climactic accident, is a stunt driver for Elizabeth Taylor, and he's hunting for Elizabeth Taylor while dressed up like Elizabeth Taylor because he figures almost cause a transcendent warping of reality if he can crash into her while he's dressed like her. And to lose that was, I think, a major uh uh ankle.
Blah, yeah.
But yeah, it was good. Have you seen High Rise?
No, I haven't.
You should. High
Okay.
Rise, Ben Wheatley's High Rise does a phenomenal job of capturing the totality of J.G. Ballard, because it gives you that. I watched it with my girlfriend who hasn't read any of his work, and she was like, "I feel weird. I feel disassociated." And that's exactly what the aspect that J.G. Ballard is trying, the mindset he's trying to put you in with his work, is that the state of the modern ape, where we're spinning around in space, and we're warping reality, and yet we can't uh, do things for our own survival that any opossum rooting through our garbage could manage. And yeah, it's a weird feeling to have, but it's a feeling that we ought to have in controlled bursts and learn to recognize, because we are those opossums rooting through the garbage.
You could probably make a whole bunch of similes and comparisons off that. I feel like with a lot, this is the last thing I'll say because we should really focus on your stuff. But
Sure.
I feel like a lot of times when they try and translate something,
Right.
from book into film, they totally miss the mark. I know people say that all the time. And like even
Yeah.
when they pretty much do a good job, like I really, really like the book American Psycho. The movie it was all right. I mean, now I like it a little bit better, but at the time I was like, oh, they missed so much. But I feel like a lot of that, like poor Graham Matheson, like he wrote I Am Legend. They have yet to make that into a movie. They've tried 3 times. It always sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when you adapt something into film, you're not going to capture the totality of the book. It's impossible.
Right.
And I think capturing the surface and the themes and the feeling is all you can really hope for. And because that's the thing. When you adapt a book into a movie, the book doesn't disappear. It's right there. You can go back for the whole thing. And so the film is going to be the surface dream experience of the book. And so I think one can't really hope for a literal interpretation. I think like Naked Lunch by Cronenberg was a
Which
fantastic,
is a great movie. I love Cronenberg stuff, and I think that's one of his better movies.
but you can't hope for it to be a transcription of the whole thing. And we
Although I've
finally
read Naked Lunch, it's a little bit hard to read. It's like he
it,
went through his cut up
it
period, so that's when he's cutting everything up. So
yeah,
like some of it like kind of makes sense, and some of it you're like, what the fuck is he doing?
right. And the what the fuck is, I think, the most important part of the journey.
Okay.
And if a film can capture that, uh whatever it means, and it shouldn't be let's go in and do the same thing and see how it plays. I think that can be a mistake too. But uh it, I've written a few screenplay adaptations, and thank God none of them have seen the screen yet. But it's you kind of have to figure out how to transcribe, how to lift that feeling of what it feels like to read the book along with the actual events. And yeah, you're going to have to lose stuff. And it's weird because now we have TV series, and like for a feature film, the ideal length to adapt would
I
be in
feel
the
sometimes a series can be a lot better than like a movie if they actually capture it. Like I'm a big fan of Watchmen, and if they
yes,
made that into a series instead of they didn't make a series, the series sucked. But I'm talking about the movie. So
right,
the movie kind of covered tried to cover like the graphic novel, and I don't feel like it captured it at all, not even close.
right. I would agree with you. And I series so often you get 2 episodes in and you realize this should have been a feature film, and they
Yeah.
just padded the crap out of it. But like with the Watch series, that was a sequel, I thought did some really brilliant stuff because it had room to play with the ideas, but they weren't wasting your time. You
Okay.
know, it delved into these amazing ideas that were riffing off of the original thesis, truer to the original comic. It was a sequel to the comic, not Snyder's movie. Um, that's an amazing achievement. But I think Alan Moore still hated it. I
Oh, he
mean,
did. Yeah, he hates all of his stuff when it's translated. And to be fair, a lot of his stuff wasn't made to be translated. Like From Hell, you
yeah,
know?
this is the thing. It's standalone as a comic. Does it
Yeah.
need to be a film? Come on, learn to read. It
Well,
it, it
there's some stuff that just you can't capture it. Like I read The Road. The Road is an awesome book, and
right.
Cormac McCarthy just has a way with words. It makes you feel the expression. There's no way you could capture that. So the movie wasn't bad at all, but it's nowhere near what the book is.
Right. And this is the thing that I mean, here's why where we are, that writing literal books is it such an anachronism right now. We're verging on a truly post-literate world where people no longer have to engage with print. They no longer have to write anything themselves beyond signing their own name. And that can
They
be an
they can even use AI and just speak into a phone and it prints it for them.
right. We are so divorced from that, and yet there are still people who read,
Right.
people who recognize that words alone can do something inside your brain that movies can't, video games can't, none of these other much more engaging forms of entertainment can do for you. And so that's a wonder. And that margin shrinks all the time, even as the population explodes. But and people are at a point where they just don't have time to read. But words interacting with the reader's mind still can do things that comics and all of those other forms still can't do. And so I think, I mean, it gives me hope, at least that I can die with a decent retirement, if not that I can take the world with my prose. but that some people recognize that it is something, it does offer an experience that you can't find anyplace else. Is it's why I get up in the morning.
Okay. So all right, so let's move back to what you have going on. I remember
Sure.
you got a hold of me like you were working on something for heavy metal and you were asking about illustrations for that. So
That's
it seems like you've done a whole, big variety of stuff, like in all different mediums, whether it's comic books or like
right.
screenplays or like short
Sure.
stories or books. Is there
Well,
one you favor?
yeah. If nothing's paying the bills, then you have to wear a lot of hats. I am currently a fiction editor at Heavy Metal, and
Okay.
they are still kind of trying to figure out how to incorporate some prose into the magazine, which is kind of like trying to sell coffee at a crack house. It's, they have comics and they have the deepest, most engrossing, luscious, lavish visuals imaginable. Why would you need to add words to that? And
They've
it
been
is,
around forever, right?
yeah, well, they formed in 77. First issue came out a couple months after Star Wars, and in its original incarnation, I think lasted until the late '80s, and then Kevin Eastman came back for a relaunch, and that got them through the
The
2000s.
Kevin Eastman of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fame. Okay.
Exactly, exactly. If you ever see Heavy Metal 2000 with Julie Strain was his wife at the time, and it's kind of had some odd missteps. It's changed hands several times, but the folks that are in charge of it now are really in touch with what it did that put the zap on so many people's heads
Right.
growing up in the late 20th century, and they want to bring that back. They want to bring back
Didn't
not
they have like a Mobius and like all these like great European artists in there?
yes, and the funny thing is about that with the relaunch is heavy metal's coming back, but Metal Plant, as produced by Humanoids Incorporated, is also coming back, and so heavy metal's relaunching, but it does not have the old European guys, Drie, Moebius, Sky, and so they're having to look
Well,
uh,
Mobius is
for
probably
new
pretty
talent.
old at this point. Yeah.
Wait,
I don't know. Mobius is probably pretty old at this point, so I'm not sure what his output is these days.
oh, he passed away several years ago.
Oh well, yeah.
He left an enormous body of stuff, quite a bit of which is still unproduced, including some stuff that was written by Alejandro Jodorowsky. Uh,
Okay.
yeah,
That's the guy who's gonna do Dune, right? Like he was gonna do one version. Yeah.
that's right. That's right. Made Santa Sangre and uh, El Topo, a number of other landmark, incredible art films. But also, I mean, his second act was as a very terrific and mind blowing comic artist, and
Okay.
yeah, and it's, I mean, every time I go and try and launch a film project, after it's done and ends up in the junkyard, I want to run screaming back to comics because comics are everything I love about making film. You're making something visual that can immediately grasp the reader. I mean, when I put out a prose book, people look at it and it's words. They can
Right.
flip through it and go, "Yeah, nice words, nerd." But it's not. It's not. It doesn't immediately. You don't have a visceral response. I need to go away with this by myself for several days before I know if I like it. Whereas if you show somebody some art, they go, "Oh my god, I love that," and you've made a fan. And so comics are wonderful that way because you can engage the reader visually and instantaneously and make a fan of them. But you're not dealing with trying to whip an army into shape and raise an enormous amount of money. The I mean, the most elaborate comic is still a cakewalk compared to the simplest motion picture that
Right.
you that you can put together. And
I think one of the strengths of comics is like you could take the most obscure, no name thing
Yeah.
ever. You put a good artist and a good writer on it, and it blows up. I mean,
Right.
look at the Alan Moore Swamp Things or like the Frank Miller Daredevils. It just like they were like non-sellers, and then the right guy came along, and then boom, it blew up.
Yes, yes. The hard thing with the comics industry now, though, is like kind of like the film industry. They want you to produce the whole thing. They don't want gone are the days when you could just come to them and go, I've got an idea for a thing, and I know this other nerd who's kind of interested in doing it. Will you give me money, please? No. They want you to come to them and go, hey, this solid gold meteorite landed my backyard. You want to help me dig it up? And so that's
Yeah,
hard.
I've had some pretty bad experiences with that. That totally coalesces with what you're talking about. Like I interviewed with DC Comics when they first moved to New York City back in '98. You know,
Yeah.
and I remember they like I have this whole like cosmic horror thing. I was all excited, and I remember they're so rude to me. They're like, I'm not saying it for me, but they're like they wanted superheroes. They wanted super. And I remember the editor pulls out this comic and it's Superman punching Lex Luthor. He goes, "You want to do this?" I was like, "No." It's like, "No job for you."
Sure. I'll tell you, man. I've been going to Comic Con because I'm a San Diego native. I've been going to San Diego Comic Con for like 27 years, and I have worked every year to try to get over with comic publishers, and I kept my expectations fairly modest, and I wasn't looking to do superhero comics, and so
Okay.
I want to do horror comics, and so I was talking to the people at Dark Horse, and the editor that I cultivated at Dark Horse bought a story for me that appeared in MySpace Dark Horse Presents. And for you young kids, MySpace was a thing once. But uh, Dark Horse has a really wonderful intellectual property thing where it's all artist owned, and
Right.
so if you create a thing with them, it's still yours. And if you want to reprint it, you just need to talk to the other people that you worked on that individual issue with. It's yours to play with. And so we created a thing called Mystery Meat, which I wrote, and Jeff Wamister, whom I believe is now an animation director at Sony, working on Spider-Man and whatnot, drew it, and it was wonderful. But I developed it into a longer thing with my excellent friend Mike Dubish, who drew it. And once during a slow period at Comic Con, we walked over to Dark Horse's pavilion, and uh, we talked to this editor, and we're like, "Hey, we'd love to show you some stuff that we've been developing for Mystery Meat." And he went, "Yeah, sure. Hold on, Cody. I'm gonna go take a piss." And he walked 10 feet away, and he started talking to somebody else, and this somebody else looked over their shoulder at us. Junior high playground all over again. This guy's like and he
Yeah.
just stood there,
Total
obviously
dick move.
not
Yeah.
going to take a piss. And I looked at Mike, and I'm like, no matter what happens, let's not ever let anybody treat us like this ever a fucking again.
Yeah.
Even if we have to self-publish, even if we have to do the thing and sell it out in front of comic shops and slap up bumper stickers every place, let's do that instead of trying to go through this machine, because I'm really tired of the shit sandwiches, and
Well, I
it's
remember Brian Keane was talking to me. He owns a comic shop, and he's saying Marvel and DC sell like 3%. Like of all the comic sales, that's like 3%. It's like it's all indie comics these days. And I've
yeah,
interviewed a lot of guys for my podcast that work on indie comics. And often they'll have a Kickstarter that they raise the funds for the next issue, and they consistently put stuff out.
yeah,
It kind of
yeah.
seems like that's the way a lot of people go these days. They're just kind of tired of the mainstream stuff.
You don't need their permission. It's not a question of will they buy me. It's a question of can they stop me, because
Right.
I
And they don't
every
own the rights.
I know a number of guys, Brian Keene included. He's a wonderful guy, wonderful creator. Who and Cullen Bunn and several others who got up there. who reach the heights and we're doing stuff with Marvel and DC, and there's always a point where they just ankle you and just go, yeah, this isn't working for us. And then you turn around and go back to indie stuff. And that's really where your home is, because if you just have a handful of people who believe in what you do and are like, I'm not doing this to make money, I'm doing this because I want and I need for this to exist.
Yeah,
That's
well,
where
I
it's
think a
at.
lot of the best people, like the people who put out the best work, that was kind of their attitude. Like I know Frank Miller was living in Harlem when it was really bad, barely paying his bills, but he just loved comics so much that that's why he's doing it.
Right, right. We're doing it because we love this thing. And that's, if the love isn't there, people will sniff that out and they'll recognize it right away. And comics, I mean, for Marvel and DC, loss leader. They create this IP which will generate content which they can uptake into films or TV series or what have you. But you're feeding the machine. You're not
Right.
creating something that's going to live and breathe. And yeah, with the great Marvel and DC sagas, I grew up going down to 7-Eleven and buying comics when they were
Same
35,
here.
40
The
cents.
spin direct, same here. Yeah.
Yeah, and now they're 4.99 an issue. It's bonkers. And it's, I understand that printing costs have gone up, all these other things have gone up, but they're putting these out and they're ripping off the creators, and they don't even care because it doesn't matter whether the thing sells as long as it generates the content that they can turn into a film, that they can turn into merchandise, because that's really where the money is. I mean, if you look at looking at Comic Con over the years, the pavilions that have grown are the ones selling the statuettes and the collectibles and the junk
Right.
and all of that stuff. If it's moving those units, it doesn't matter whether the con is publicized or
It's all
whether
the
it's popular.
merchandising, it's not the actual product itself.
Right, right. But it is still, there's still a window and it's shrinking, where if you just have a great idea and you can con an artist into staying up nights and drawing for you, then you can make an amazing thing. And that's as amazing as it needs to be. It doesn't need to be a video game. It doesn't need to be a movie, because if you get inside somebody's head and they're living it when they're driving around at night on their Uber or making sandwiches at Subway, whatever, they're still there. You're still sharing a dream,
Right.
and that's as close to magic as most
Well,
of us
that's the best
get.
when you're really into it.
Right.
Like the people that really inspired me as far as the way I wanted to draw was the art team of Steve Bissett and John Tolman when they
Oh
did
God.
the Swamp Things of Alan Moore. I
Yeah.
still think that was like the best art team of all time. But
Mhm.
when they were going to do that, they're like, well, we want to make this more of like a Louisiana swamp monster. So they actually traveled down to Louisiana. This is back in the days when people didn't have cameras, so they took photos of everything. They're like, so they had a reference of the swamps of Louisiana to draw a swamp thing. Like that's dedication.
Yes, yes. Steve Bissett, who wrote a wonderful introduction to the first edition of my comic Mystery Meat with Mike Dubish, uh, is a wonderful touchstone, because he's open to translating so much more of raw life
Yeah,
into
I interviewed him for this podcast. He's very nice guy.
wonderful dude, wonderful dude. Absolutely love him. Would not kill him if I was him.
Would not kill him. So you wouldn't push him in front of the zombies if they were coming after you.
No, no. I'm not quite sure I'd throw myself in there first. I'm like, so hey, are you working more on more? All right then. This is my stop. But yeah, there are wonderful individual creators, and that's the thing. It's like Peter Gabriel said. It's, if you want to keep control, you got to keep it small, and that's why I really like what you're doing with this anthology.
No, thank
Um,
you.
in that you can still have some control and bring people some raw amazing stuff, because yeah, if you have to make compromises, the larger your audience is. And I recognize, yeah, it's kind of a niche thing, but people that are into it are really deep into it. And yeah, that's why I'm to be a part of this project that you're
Oh,
working on right
awesome.
now.
Thank you. Yeah, I worked with some like bigger publishers and like uh, eventually like Jeff Strange is kind of the guy who like gave me a lot of feedback and like gave me the inspiration to like I'll just go off and do my own thing. And
Right.
like, and not have to answer to people that are like, well, I don't know if this pushes a boundary. I don't know if this is like, I don't even have to worry about that.
Right. And that's what you shouldn't have to do. You can be out here on the fringe, and if you can still find your people, then it doesn't matter how large your audience is. If your audience is intense and they're picking up what you're putting down, that's what it's all about.
Right. And last thing I'll say, because like I said, I wanted to consider new, but it is a labor of love. It's like you can tell almost right away when people are like, yeah, I just want the dollars. It's like, okay, well, this isn't for you then.
No, no, it's not here. There's a lot of other ways to do that. But if you have something to say, if you have something to transmit, uh, it's like Joe Strummer once said, played for a man and a dog, and the man left. Um, I'd be there if one person shows up, and that's the maddening thing. It's like you put out something, you kind of hope you're not. I'm not. I'm never a materialistic, grindy person trying to get over. But you hear from one person that what you wrote really changed the nature of their day, and that's really all you can hope for. That's really all that you need. Although it is maddening because it makes you think, yeah, I wish I could feed on that guy's energy right now.
Right.
Because but uh,
And
that's
sometimes you wish everybody was as into it as that one person was.
right. And if you think if you broadcast wider, if you got to a wider people, there'd be more people that just don't understand it. And
Right.
um, I mean, I've learned from working with Oddness Press and Forbidden Futures, which is a little zine that I used to edit, illustrated by Mike Dubish, with like little short, very pulpy sci-fi horror and fantasy stories. And
Okay.
we've been in the small press section at Comic-Con for several years, and we found the best thing we can do is be right in front of the bathroom because people go
Because
through
that's
the
in traffic, yeah. Oh,
right, people go
that's a
through the
good tip,
small press
actually.
section and they bought their really expensive Galactus figurine
Right,
and
right,
all this toy crap that they're embarrassed about, and they just want to find the bathroom. And we recognize if somebody's wearing a Green Lantern or a Flash or a Thor T-shirt, they're probably not our guys. But
right.
if anybody walks by wearing a Tales from the Crypt hat or something like that, we recognize, oh, hello, sucker. And you're, we're gonna it's our job to make you pee your pants because
Right.
you forgot that you needed to go to the restroom, and the thing that you couldn't find anywhere else. And that
Right.
is a wonderful, it's like we don't want lines around the block waiting for our thing. If we just find a few people that get
And to be honest, there's probably a bunch of people that you don't like in those lines.
yes, or who don't want to be there. They thought this was the line for the bathroom.
It's like the cool thing, yeah.
Right. But that you can offer something that they couldn't find anywhere else in this room, this single room that's almost a mile long. And we're offering something nobody else is offering, not Dark Horse, not IDW, not Marvel, not DC, you know,
Image. Image is
all of
huge
these other.
now. Dynamite, yeah.
Right. And so if you're offering something that they're not offering, it's great. All you need is a handful. And you can slowly build that into an army because the folks are out there. It's 340 million in this country. If only I think one of the seminal things that I saw as a child that really um, uh, hammered home not just what I wanted to do, but how I wanted to do it. Devo was on the Merv Griffin show,
Mhm.
and
Whip
And
it. Yeah.
Merv Griffin was like, haven't you ever thought about, like, wouldn't you want like a wider audience? And Mark Mothersbaugh was like, no, no. If just 0.1% of the nation are able to connect with what we do, that's all we need.
Right.
That's all we need is people who actually get it. Because that real communication, if that's what if your heart is grounded and you're in it for the right reasons, then that's all you need is those people who get it. And as much of the distraction industry is in place right now to constantly just baffle you and bamboozle you with bullshit, you can still find your thing. You can still find your people and find stuff is doing stuff that nobody else is doing. And that's what it's all about, man. I know you know that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of twofold too. It's like one, if it's like Lord of the Rings, right? Like everybody thinks that it's not gonna make it. That's not what the market's all about. But once you put it out and you get fans, those are super loyal fans. They're like, oh well, that was the top movie this week. They're like, oh, Lord of the Rings, I gotta check out more. Let me check out the books. Let me check out the audio, all that sort of stuff. So. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, it really shows.
yeah, yeah. You can only hope to just find and create these things and get them in front of the right people and hope that out of the 97% will walk by, but that 3% that sees it will recognize I've been looking for this. I've
Right.
been waiting for this. And that's all we can hope for. And
Yeah, and they'll be all about it. Yeah. So, all right. So, what do you have out right now? Like, and you have a long history. Do you have anything that you put out in the past that you want to shout out to tell the audience?
oh, absolutely. I mean, I have always been on the periphery of the horror community. I'm one of those people, as soon as I stop waving my arms, I disappear. Um, but I wrote a horror novel, which was reissued to wonderful effect by Ghoulish Press, a dude named Max Booth and his wife, Lori Michelle Booth, down in San Antonio, Texas. It's a book called Perfect Union.
Okay.
And it's a gnarly, kids lost in the woods, bad things happen type of horror novel. I hope more folks would check out that. Um, and I'm still, I mean, as I said at the beginning of this, I've been in this game for 30 years, but I'm still finding people, and still people are still finding me. And so with anthologies like The Joke Is on Mankind, I'm still hoping to find readers that have never heard of me, or everybody's probably seen my name. It's a goofy name. It stands out. And people are like, why aren't you just writing Westerns? Which I also do. But with stuff like my story Cavity Creeps, which is in The Joke Is
By
on Man.
anthology, yeah.
Yeah. In that, I was kind of confronting the worst case scenario for my own life, because it's a story about
Ending
a
up
man,
in a storage, you know.
a music teacher, and he's been beaten up so much by life. All he has is just his junk and his storage unit, and he's living in the storage unit because he has nowhere else to go, and his wife has passed, and he's just clinging to the things that made him want to be a creator, and recognizing that all he's facing is despair, and the possibility of of being devoured by it. And there's a temptation to succumb to it when you get to a certain point in your career and you're like, was it worth this? I mean, I
Right.
could have just worked a full-time security job and had a decent living. I'd be better off than I was now. And really, all I have is my books and my records and stuff. And and confronting whether you just succumb to that despair when you no longer have any energy to keep offering things. And I hope that it's a hopeful story, that it reminds people that if that's all you have, that's more than most people have, is that you had a dream and that you had a purpose in life, and you can't lose sight of it. You have to hold on to it and recognize that it might not have led to fame and fortune, but if it led to a purpose, that is something which a lot of people are drifting through life without ever finding.
Right.
And
It's
so
probably kind of a metaphorical question, like, was it worth it?
yeah, absolutely. I would do it all over again and I wouldn't do anything any different. Even if I knew I'd be coming up against the same outcome, because I feel like I've I know a handful of people who said your work inspired me to write, and so I ruined their lives too. Um, you know,
But that's a great feeling. Like, all
it is
jokes aside, that's a great feeling. Yeah.
it is a great feeling because you go back to your youth and you go back to the things that touched on you and seem to offer another way, another path to live out of this, just making and taking and getting screwed over. uh it's the artist's life, irrespective of a successful outcome and fame and fortune and all that bullshit, which I need like taste buds in my anus. uh it's if there's any other way to live, I'm all ears, but I have seen those opportunities. I've been in a place in my life where I was married into wealth and I could have just shut up and smiled and lived a really really good life, and it felt hollow. I felt alone, more alone than I'd ever felt in my entire life because I was living somebody else's life. And so yeah, you have to be true to what drives
Did
you.
you feel like you were living a vision that was dictated to you, like this is the way you should be?
Yeah, yeah. And it was all there for me. I just had to lay back, baby, and take it. And it didn't fulfill me. And I thought, I'd rather be over here starving and struggling and making something that might wake some people up.
Right. Well, all right, so going off that real quick, what do you have out now that people can see, and how can they see it? Do you have like a website?
Yeah, you can go to codygoodfellow.com and see what I've got going on. I've got some recent books. It's been a while since my last release. My last book was Vertical, which is an action driven thriller about these urban explorers who go to the new world's tallest building in Moscow and encounter adversity. That was kind of a day job thing. But Yeah, my next book, my big exploder, is due out July 15th, and that's called New Tomorrow. And
Okay.
yeah, if I was gonna,
What's that about?
that's the one that's about, it's set in the 1930s where this guy teleportation, and it
Oh,
promises
awesome.
to upend everything out of the Great Depression. It's the only book that, to my knowledge, that has ever dared to ask, what if the Blob was the good guy?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, there's
Actually, in most horror stuff, I usually figure the horror creature or whatever is a good guy.
right. He's misunderstood,
Yeah,
and
well, there's some that are very clear, like Frankenstein's monster. Like he just misunderstood. Like people are tormenting him and trying to kill him. I don't
Mhm,
blame him. I'm surprised he didn't go more mad.
mhm. Yes, and that's it's kind of like how in the early 20th century, uh Disney created this wonderful formula where they create a character who's an orphan but a child of destiny, and that is something that everybody identified with. And I think in the 21st century, more and more of us identify with the monster because we're all misbegotten. We feel trapped in a world we never made that hates us, and
Right.
and we're freakish. And yet the things about us that make us outcasts and pariahs are exactly the things that also make us magical and extraordinary.
Yeah, you also have like the mob is quick to stereotype you, they're quick to rush to judgment, and like they're almost always proven wrong. Like I remember the whole satanic panic of like the 80s and stuff, and like
Yes.
when NWA came out with "Fuck the Police," and there were all these protests, and it's like, yeah, but they kind of had a point.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I mean, it's and the satanic panic, I mean, nobody was actually sacrificing babies, nobody was cutting up cats, but just the thought that somebody was trying to find a way to live that was not on their schedule was so outrageous and upset that they went looking for these horrible things and were trying to demonize us and accuse of doing these horrible things. But those horrible things were, it's all they could understand of. These people were just looking for a different way because the way that you've been offering them is clearly bullshit.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
well, like I was, especially my teenage years, I was super into punk rock, and I remember lots of people were like, "Oh, you're worshiping, saying no to this and that's." Like, how about you're all full of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's I mean their morality system, they've prostituted their capitalism is clearly, a mafia thing now. And so
Well, I wouldn't even say it's capitalism as much as corporatism, because you have all these giant like corporations that just run everything, and the minute that anybody tries to do their own thing, they just crush them.
right. Well, the scariest thing that anybody has said to me, I mean, not to me personally, but to me, the scariest thing anybody this has said this century is when Mitt Romney said, corporations are people, my friend. Because if corporations
Yeah.
are people, we're amoeba. It reduces the scale to where
And Skynet is your friend.
we are not. And so yeah, I feel like cosmic horror is kind of the ethos of the age, because we have to learn to live in a reality that is utterly inimical and indifferent to our happiness or our
Right.
fulfillment. So yeah, we're just trying to make that fun. I guess is
Although
all.
we might all be living in like an alternate reality, like Matrix style world, so
Right, right. I mean,
who knows?
it begs the question. I mean, whenever somebody, you know, throws out that notion that we're living in a simulation, it's like, why would it be this shitty though? Wouldn't it be something great? I mean, I'd be more sure that I was living in a simulation if everything did the way did what I wanted it to. But
Well,
I'm
if you
in my
remember the Matrix movies, and they were talking about that, and like
yeah,
the computers are talking about how they originally made it more perfect, and it didn't work out.
right.
And so they had to make it more like real life so that people actually bought it.
Right. It has to be shitty or we wouldn't accept it. I mean, the best screenwriting advice I ever got at UCLA, a professor named Richard Walter said, nobody will ever accuse you of doing something unrealistic as long as you keep making things worse. And that's kind of our nature, is that we expect things to be shitty. And so I guess if as long as you just promise that and keep doing it, then that's a recipe for success. But
It
man,
doesn't unfortunately seem like that's the case. Like all empires crumble, they eventually get super corrupt, and like look at Rome.
yeah, yeah. Well, we're kind of right there. I mean, a lot of people thought Philip K. Dick clearly thought that the Nixon years were a reiteration of the fall of the Roman Empire. But man, he'd be
I
he'd
love Philip K. Dick stuff. He wrote
oh yeah.
some great stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm a huge fan, and his work kind of informs everything that I've done since, some to greater degrees. I've been on America that is very much kind of riffing on Philip K. Dick's themes about internal and consensual reality, and if you could, it in the central premise of that is that this guy has discovered a mushroom that would allow everybody to have their own lucid dreams, their own perfect reality every time they go to sleep. And it could be a wonderful tool for enlightenment, but it could also be a perfect pacifier, because if you can go to sleep and live in a wonderful reality, then yeah, your waking reality can get shittier and shittier and further out of your control. But it's a double-edged sword. But that's what you want to offer people is a reality where everything works. What if you could have a reality where shit happens that you wanted to have happen? And we in writing horror, it's I one thing that I have come across. I didn't end up becoming like a bright-sided manic phony, but I'd written so many grim, dark things that like, here, look at this. This is that shit you don't want to face, that I wanted to come around and actually take people someplace they'd want to go. And that's becoming harder and harder to find. But I tried to do that new tomorrow.
Okay.
And yeah,
New Tomorrow is that's what you're putting out. Like,
in
when did you
July.
say it's coming out? In
In
July?
July. July 15th.
Okay, and it's a novel.
A big fat novel. Yes.
Okay, do you have illustrations of that? Are you gonna do you have
Mike,
plans to make it into
yeah,
an audiobook?
Mike Dubish did cover art and interior illustrations, and they're fantastic.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome. And people can see that on your website.
Yes. If you go to CodyGoodfellow.com, it's right there.
Okay, and would it be like on Amazon and find bookstores
You
everywhere?
can, yeah, you can find it on Amazon, Walmart, every other place where you might pre-order books. We're hoping folks will go directly to us, but
Okay.
we
And
understand you got
would
to
you
go.
have, because I know you've done a decent amount of things, would they all be on your website, like links
Yes.
to your past projects and
Yes.
stuff? So
Yes.
if people wanted to get like autographed books or
They
anything
can
like that.
contact me through the website. Yes, and I am happy to send signed copies out to folks.
Okay, awesome. All right, well, thank you, man. Thank you very much for being on here. Do you have anything else you want to throw out to the social sphere?
Sure. I'm a DJ and I have a radio show at a community-driven all-volunteer radio station down in San Diego, Righteous People Powered Radio called KNSJ, and my show's on Thursday nights. It's called Bionic Exotica, and it's all kinds of weird mutant world music. And yeah, we'd love it if you stop by.
Okay, awesome. And is that available like streaming or
Yes.
Spotify?
You can find it streaming if you go to knsj.org. Shows are archived. Yes.
Okay, awesome,
Yeah.
man. All right, well, again, thank you very much for being on this. Anything else?
Nah, that's it. I'm just happy to be included.